a very interactive live and learn session. We're going to explore, as you know, the topic for today is the nature of suspicion. Even the topic itself may create something in your uh, emotional sort of bandwidth, and we want you to explore that, the nature of suspicion. We're going to have a little meditation as part of this hour, and we're going to kind of explore, even with some Q&A in and throughout, um, where and in what way this very moment that we are all sharing, not just here, but globally, universally, planetarily, the nature of suspicion has become heightened in a way, and what are our needs and wants and desires to modify our understanding of that. And so do you want to
Well,
kind of where
yeah.
we began to explore? Oh, we have a virtual background, as you can see today. So I
It
might
may
dip
disappear at
in and out. That
times.
could be very suspicious, but
Yeah, it could be.
since everybody has virtual
See,
backgrounds now, whoop.
when Jillian turns towards me, she disappears. So you can't look at me.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, suspicion is a cycle. It recreates and inspires more suspicion. The way you could say it to have an oddly biblical tone is suspicion begets suspicion, and fear begets fear. Um, and in the healing world, there's a lot of that. There can be suspicion keeps us in fear, and therefore fear perpetuates the desire and the craving for protections, and fear of doing things wrong makes us look for better ways to do them right. And it creates what ifs and complex how to do it this way so we don't get it wrong that way. The nature of suspicion, ultimately, though, is that it causes us to
Mhm.
distance ourselves from one another, which is ultimately to distance ourselves from love, from connection, and from oneness.
And one of the ways in which we were trying to explore this topic was to um, take ourselves to the recognition of how very voluminous aspects of our life support and or kind of egg on that suspicion. And that could be the most everyday mundane things. It could be, as we know, media, it could be religion, it could be politics, it could be um, family dynamics. It can be all of these sort of catalytic relationships that we sit in. And often I compare discernment as being a source of instinct and suspicion to be something that discernment, when taken over by the mind, spins out, just in the same way that sometimes disappointment, which can be a healthy observation, can turn so quickly into betrayal. And we have to be aware that consciousness experiences itself through the thinking mind. So we live this. And we'd like you, just kind of at the tip of this conversation, to take a moment, whether you have a pen or a pencil or um, your phone. We want you to just take 60 seconds or so to write down something in your life. Maybe it's something recent, maybe it's something that's gnawed at you for decades, something that you would say is and has created the nature of suspicion for you.
And keep those notes, keep them by you, because we're going to refer back to them a little later. Okay. Um, in the healing world, for example, though, often we talk about suspicion. If I open myself up to healing, might I take on someone else's problems? Sometimes you know, as religion can do things. What's the source of this healing? Is it evil? Is it the devil? Is it um, energies that aren't here for our good? Suspicion often causes us to personify
Right.
things, to create the appearance of a reality where the reality itself doesn't really exist, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because personifying our fears makes them appear very real, which, yes, creates and intensifies, I should say, intensifies the fear. So, why is that not necessarily a bad thing? It's because sometimes it brings us to a place where we need to be brought to in order to release it. In other words, instead of holding on to constant low level fears, like living with constant low level electrical frequencies affecting our bodies and our brains, we get to a point where we just recognize, hey, I don't need to be in fear any longer. So, recognizing and acknowledging these things is not to be equated with a judgment of good or bad as much as it is a recognition of something.
Yeah. And when we think of love, the experience or the feeling of love can be suspicious, but love has no suspicion. Love itself has no suspicion. But again, the experience or a feeling leaves the perfect platform or soil for suspicion to be present.
Could that be really because the suspicion in the situation with feelings of love could be fear of loss,
Yes.
insecurity, and then again, we build up things that aren't real and create them into a picture that feels very, very real. And if it didn't feel real, again, it's the old um, mnemonic or whatever it is of fear, FEAR, false evidence appearing real. And of course, if it didn't appear real, we wouldn't be afraid of it in the first place. It would just be fur. And who's afraid of fur except for fur wearing animals, I guess. And they should be, and they could be suspicious of people and guns, but that's a whole other tangent.
So if you're living in the United States right now or uh, kind of experiencing what the United States is going through, clearly there is a lot of suspicion that's been taking place around um, a political moment, if you will. And we don't want to engage in any conversation about politics, but what we do want to say is just in the same way that disappointment can turn rapidly into betrayal, or discernment can turn rapidly into suspicion, patriotism can turn rapidly into nationalism. And those are really tricky little um, ways in which our life can unfold. And we very much want to explore fundamentally, I'm going to say,
Brett, I think we should
oh,
just for one moment explain this because so many times we think of nationalism and patriotism as the same thing, but if you really look at them, um, they're words that are used interchangeably. But patriotism really tends to mean fundamentally an affection for one's country, any country, and even a willingness to defend it. Nationalism tends is a word that represents a more extreme approach, sort of an even, well, an unforgiving form of allegiance to one's country. So, um, just in case you're going, well, what's the difference? I thought I'd share. Google it up. It's kind of
well, I
interesting.
think affection versus allegiance.
Right.
And those are really
Unforgiving
applicable.
allegiance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are very particular things. So our nature is certainly, if you're with this group of friends, is consistently exploring the awareness of oneness. It is part of what we do as a group of friends. We come and we gather and we investigate the nature. of our infinite, irreducible oneness. That is an inherent part of energy, light, and information. It is an inherent part of the reconnective healing experience. So it's a great opportunity to kind of venture into how consciousness experiencing itself through the mind uh, often confuses this sense of knowingness. Uh, we've been successful at exploring spirituality and healing um, with ideas and practices and very deliberate, uh, I'm going to say, practices that can be all consuming and formulas and really at the end of the day reconnective healing and the reconnective healing experience is really the undoing of a practice. It is the dissolving of a ritual. It is the dissolving of otherness itself.
which allows us to gravitate more towards recognizing love, recognizing our essence, because it is free of judgment, whereby suspicion by its very nature
ازيك
is
اصلي مش هفهمك
judgment.
الريدم صح.
Thereby, suspicion by its very nature really is judgment. And because it stems from fear, it often interferes with our ability to receive, to receive, to receive love, to receive gifts, to receive healing in any situation, because we start to question what is the source of the healing? What is it? We become suspicious of, become suspicious because our mind starts again to create the appearance of reality to something that really is just a creation of
Activity.
the mind itself, an activity of the mind itself.
And so to know the difference between the activity of the mind and the infinite nature of our awareness is useful. It's useful. And it is always the reconnective healing experience that brings that conversation of balance into the forefront of our awareness. It is what energy, light, and information is here to do. It is just that. So, separation is an illusion. We can talk about that from the format of quantum physics. We can talk about that from the format of many different spiritual explorations and belief systems. And we live it in the reconnective healing experience so simply because it actually um, circumvents, in a way, that attachment to the thinking mind. And that's what we want to play with today. We want you to pick. I'm going to use this word in a way that I want you to take it fully. We want you to pick your most charged suspicion, whatever it may be. It could be something again instilled from childhood. It could be something that came up recently. It could be a situation that you're embroiled in and really, complicated circumstances have become part of your reality, whatever it may be.
It could be
Pick your
beliefs,
most
right?
charged suspicion.
It could even be political parties within your own country. It could be factions, religions, or peoples sharing a country's border but struggling for their own. And it's not that it might not have some basis in reality at one point of another or another, from oppression or anything else. So choose what it is. You don't have to assign it as real or not real. As a matter of fact, attributing it to something that feels very real actually invests you a little bit more in what we're going to be playing with today.
And ultimately, it is with the deep love to find within the nature of our finite self a way to express suspicion differently in this new normal, to change the course of human history by simply that adjustment.
Recognize that market, as we touched on, religion, science, media can fan the flames of things, and hanging, believe it or not, with people who think exactly the way we think often reinforces our suspicions, because it's reinforced in others who we respect because we like the similarity in thought. But sometimes we might choose to pause and say, hey, these are my friends and I really do love them and they think the same way I think. But does that mean that the way I think shouldn't be open to my own examination? Not that I need to change anyone else's thinking, but am I willing to explore my own thought without attachment to feeling that my own thinking must be right? So we were going to play.
Yes.
Do you want to play a little bit?
Yeah.
With a little bit of a meditation. So here's how I'm going to suggest we take this meditation. We're not going to do a guided meditation with this. Instead, you're going to look at those thoughts that you've had that have suspicion. Pick one of them, pick two of them, let them float with you. Maybe just there's something, a phone call that came up you were suspicious of, something mentioned with a friend. And before we begin this, we want to say hello and goodbye for now to our YouTubers. We hope you YouTubers will actually come join us and be a part of these things, because you're going to enjoy the meditation. And I guess when you do join, you'll actually get replays, right?
Yeah.
So you can do the meditation with us then. Anyway, so bring your attention to your thought, and we're going to experience
the thought that you wrote down.
Right.
Bring your attention fully in the most charged way to the situation or circumstance or predicament that might be creating what we'll call the nature of suspicion for you.
And let's see what opens for us also during this meditation as possible alternative thoughts to these suspicions. Are there alternative thoughts? If there are, what might they be? What's on the other side of that suspicion? So we're going to suggest, how about if we just allow
Close your eyes.
our eyes to close,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to experience and be in the frequencies. We're all going to simply receive the energy, the light, the information, the reconnective healing frequencies, and let's see where this gorgeous, exquisite intelligence leads us. And we'll let you know when to open and when to return.
And if you're new and you're not clear on what it means to receive the reconnective healing frequencies or to merge into a reconnective healing experience,
you're about to find out.
Then allow yourself to simply explore the nature of receiving right now, however you might understand that.
But with as little direction as possible. So if there's anything you've been told about how to... Hey there, family. Dr. Eric and Jillian here.
Welcome, everyone.
And we're very excited about Reconnective Life, our first online global community. This is the most exciting way we've been able to get together since I founded the Reconnection. It'll be a place where we can do things together. We'll move into breakout rooms at times when that's appropriate. We'll have energy interactions and meditations and exercises. In other words, expect things you haven't seen before.
You are so charged.
Thanks.
He is so lit about every new way we get to be together every day. Just be together. Let us just speak a little bit about what is going to be the shape of this community.
In this community, we can share and discover more. Here we can talk to each other, we can chat, we can learn from and about one another. Jillian, me, our life leaders, and you will be in daily conversation with you. Weekly, we will have Facebook Lives.
We will be with you every Wednesday. Sometimes it'll be just Eric, On occasion, it might just be me. Sometimes it'll be the two of us. It's all about giving you a way to look at the week living in the frequencies.
And in every fourth week, we will include a live Q&A, so we can talk about things that have been coming up for us, discuss back and forth, share, grow, expand together.
And the ever-growing library of content that has been created over 20 years that will be on demand for you. It will be on-demand content for you to view, enjoy, share again with your inner circle.
And monthly, we are going to have live Zoom retreats.
We're going to bring in some exercises and experiences and things that previously we've reserved for our physical retreats, you know, when we were in the different location resorts and things, and we're modifying them so that we can work with these with you in your home, in your living room, in your den.
Put into the chat line, what is facility?
We're having these weekly Zoom in-depth Q&As.
Finally, we have a place and space to just define what does that really mean living in the frequencies.
This is something that is in all of us.
Everyone can do this.
It doesn't matter how many levels you've gone through or how well you know the programs. It's a community that allows us to recognize how interrelated we all are as receivers of energy, light, and information.
See you there.
Reconnective Life, living in the frequencies every day.